Welcome to the D2C Revenue Rocket Podcast. Today we have Matt Scanlan, co-founder of Naadam. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So I have heard a lot of founder stories over the years, and you definitely have one of the most wild and interesting stories. Before we jump into like what you're doing now and where you're going, I'd love for you to share your story with everyone.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I forget sometimes. It honestly feels like a different lifetime. And there certainly was a period where our founding story was kind of like all I had. All I had to offer was how we started, because we didn't know how to make product. We didn't know how we were going to distribute that product. We didn't know how we were going to build our business. We hadn't done anything yet. So it's fun. It's fun to go back to it. It's a story of a kid who kind of didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I kind of still don't. But I guess high level, I'll give the shortened version because it's a long story. But I'd spent a couple of years working in finance in New York, not really enjoying the category I was in, and had no plan not to do it long term. Just knew I kind of needed a break. And this is about 23, 24 at the time. And decided I was going to take a trip around Asia. I'd always wanted to go see China, wanted to go to Southeast Asia. And I had a buddy who was studying abroad in Asia at the time. And he said, I'll travel with you here or there if you want to do a trip. But I really want to go to Mongolia. And Mongolia was not on my list. I had actually not really known much about it. But he was interested in it, so I said, "Okay, I'll meet you there first, and then let's hit the rest of this itinerary." And we went to Mongolia, and I guess I've never left, so very serendipitous. But we didn't have a plan when we got to Mongolia, so we were gonna kind of backpack around. We were gonna stay in the capital city, which is called Ulaanbaatar. Looking back on it, kind of knowing nothing about where we were going or what we were planning to do is, I think, why we're here today. We got there and I was super uncomfortable, by the way. I'd actually never really done this type of travel. So looking back on it, I tell the story and I make myself sound a little cooler than I actually am. And I need to remind people throughout this story that I am not. I was a very sheltered Jewish kid from Westport, Connecticut, who'd never really done anything like that before. In any event, we are starving for kind of comfort when we get to a place that feels very uncomfortable. We're staying at a hostel behind the State Department store in Ulaanbaatar. This is over 10 years ago, so very different. If anybody's listening that's been there recently, the city was different. The country was different in a lot of ways. Some ways still the same. And we said, where can we find other Americans? And so we asked where the expats were. So we went to an expat bar, what we'd heard, and it's called Genghis Khan's Pub. I think it's still there. And we belly up to the bar, but we realized there's no expats. It's just all Mongolians. And so everyone's looking at us like strange. And we ended up meeting a couple guys who offered to take us to the countryside. We spent all night talking to them, and they said, well, we're going to the countryside. If you want to come with us, we're leaving tomorrow morning. And so we agree. And we meet them in the morning. Again, this is more or less how it happened, but no questions were asked. We just said, yeah, sure, whatever. Long story short, we end up going on a car ride the next day. We're in the car for somewhere between 20 and 22 hours. We spend all day driving around. We kind of think we're just doing a big circle coming back to the city at the end of the day. And around midnight, we're not back in the city. And we end up spending the night with a herder in a ger. A ger is like a tent-like structure that nomadic herders who live throughout the countryside of Mongolia, this is their home. And so we're taking and we spend the night and we're like, this is an awesome experience. When are we going back? How far are we from the city? And basically what we find out over the course of a couple hours in different conversations is that's not really what's happened. We've been taken to a relatively remote area of Mongolia called the Gobi Desert, really the outer Gobi, passed by Hungor, which is a Sum in the southwest region. And we're basically left there. So we spend a month living with this family. And I've sped through a lot of very important details here, but long story short, we live with this family. They take us in, they clothe us, they feed us. And we have this remarkable transformative experience where we come to one really important conclusion that they're just like us. That like no matter where you go in the world and no matter how uncomfortable you feel because maybe things don't feel familiar to you, people are people. And when something's funny, everybody laughs. And when someone gets angry, they yell at you. Those are universalities. And it was this eye-opening, transformative experience that we came to really cherish. And we used that as the centerpiece to whatever we did next. So whatever we did going forward was going to be rooted in this understanding that you should treat everyone fairly because we're all equal. So simple, right? Like, what's the difference between us? It's all superficial. We're both just people. So when you go into business together, everything you should try and do should be to make it equal. You should win. I should win. That felt really simple. And I think really not having any experience or really having an agenda led us to some really foundational conclusions that drove the rest of our career, for better or for worse, because I promise you, that's not what we've encountered along the way. There's plenty of people who want us to lose and them to win in a business deal. Having said that, our value system is our value system. It's what we learned to do. And so we eventually left Mongolia, but we came back with the idea that we would support them with some nonprofit work. Some of the learnings from the experience we'd had, and we understood that they subsisted off of herding animals. Those animals were primarily goats. They combed the fur, the hair off of those goats, and then they sold it. So they were the base of this big supply chain. That hair they comb is called cashmere. We didn't know any of this at the time, kind of putting it together. But what we said was, what do you need? What can we help with? We'd like to help you. You helped us. And basically what they said is veterinary care. We want the animals to be healthy. We need to sell this to people who arrive once here. And if it's better or healthier or we have a lower mortality rate, we have a more consistent livelihood. Simple, more or less. So we raised some money for a nonprofit. Doesn't go the way we thought. We just aren't understanding something. We realize there's a big problem in the supply chain. They're at the bottom of a supply chain that for literally centuries has benefited by essentially fixing the cost structures based on the remoteness. So people arrive to these remote areas, they collectively fix lower prices, and then they resell the product, the material, in a commodity supply chain. We started asking questions. What does it sell for? Who do you sell it to? What's the end price? And came to the conclusion that the person who was getting screwed the most were the people we cared about the most, the herders. They did not benefit from their hard work. They didn't see the end product. They didn't see the markup along the way. And they were just simply trying to sell what they could to make money off of the hard work that they did all year long. And just to put this in perspective for you, they subsist through negative 40-degree temperatures on average in the wintertime. They live in the steppe region of Mongolia, which is frigid during the wintertime, grueling most of the year because they're nomadic. They live in gairs and they move them anywhere between 2 and 11 times a year to follow the herd. And whatever the weather brings them is how they survive. And they simply comb the animals in the springtime and then sell the material. That's it. So we came to one really weird conclusion, looking back, and I don't know how we reached this because we shouldn't have. We said, why don't we just buy the material from you and screw all these other people that you're selling to because they are screwing you? So we came up with this idea that we would get our hands on about $2.5 million of cash and we would buy everything from them. We did. I found someone to lend us $2.5 million. I wired it to a bank account in Mongolia. I took it all out in cash, and we drove that 22 hours off-roading in the middle of the Gobi Desert, where we bought about 60 tons of cashmere from the entire community. It was about 16 tractor trailers that we'd organized logistics around and trucked it back. It took us 32 hours to get it back to Ulaanbaatar. We had no idea how to process it. We had no idea to spin it into yarn. We had no idea how to make a sweater. We had no idea how to sell it. It was a crazy, crazy experience that looking back on, like knowing what I know now, there's no way I would have been able to take the same risks that we took. Um, but it was this like relentless need to solve a problem because it was the problem in front of us for the people that we cared about. And that same mentality, that same value system, we've tried really hard to maintain in everything we've done. I'd be lying completely if I said we've done it perfectly. We have not. Business is tough, and there's lots of ups and downs. But I've said this to investors and lenders over time because they say all the time, like, why can't someone just buy this business and remove the whole thing? What if they don't care, right? We've seen the recent news of Everlane selling to Sheen and things like that, and it's obvious you can gut a business of its value system if it's not advantageous from a financial standpoint. Why can't that happen here? Two reasons. One, you don't end up with the same product or value proposition for the customer if you change that. Two, as long as I'm here, these are our values. These are my values. This is the only thing the brand stands on. We don't have a unique fashion perspective. We make sweaters, and we do it with an equitable lens towards a value proposition for the customer and the people we source the material from. We wouldn't do it any other way, or I wouldn't do it any other way. And if I'm not here, I don't think you could change it. But still, as long as I'm here, this is what the business will be. So that was not the 10-minute version, but that's the story of how we started Naadam.
That story is so awesome. And I'm sure you can tell that story. You can tell like the full story. You could go on for hours and still don't get to the whole thing.
Totally.
My 20s, I had a lot of similar experiences. I mean, nothing that led to me building $100 million plus business, but I did a lot of similar experiences where I would travel places like that, and just people would say, "Hey, you want to go to my village?" And I would go, and usually I would go and I'd be there for 24 hours or 12 hours. But so when you guys realized that you weren't going anywhere and that you were staying there, you're 23 years old, first time in, outside of the country, or first time like somewhere that outside of the country, like what were you feeling?
Overwhelmed. I mean, initially I was really scared. Like one felt really uncomfortable because there was just a ton of ambiguity. I mean, no one spoke English, so it was like very challenging to like root ourselves in anything. I mean, there would be days where we didn't talk to anybody but each other because it was challenging. We felt out of place. We were uncomfortable. None of the things that make us feel comfortable were there. There's no electricity. There's no running water. We don't have any food. We didn't bring any clothing with us. Like, we were not prepared for this. And it was only this one experience kind of turned everything for us. I was really busy spending my time making myself miserable early on. It was not like a sexy, cool thing at first. I was overwhelmed. I was scared. And I was just thinking to myself constantly, I'm different. Like, I'm not the same. They're like this and I'm like that. And it was making it harder, right? I was distancing myself from reality, which I'm sure is a normal defense mechanism for people. But it was only in this one experience where Diedrich and I are asked to herd the goats one day. And that's not that difficult. You kind of like open the gate, let them out, and then follow them wherever they go. Having said that, we're out there with the goats, and another herder's goats end up mixing with these goats. And I've told this story before, but one of the herders we were staying with, he came out and he was really angry. He's yelling at us, and we don't really understand why. We didn't think we did anything wrong. Turns out, if you let a group of goats mix with another group of goats, how do you like, it's a nightmare to pull them all apart, and so you're not supposed to allow that to happen. But it was the first time I felt comfortable, right? Because I understood what was happening, right? Like, I didn't know what was going on. And then here in this moment, I'm being yelled at in Mongolian. So I know I'm in trouble. You know what it means? I'd been yelled at before, right? I'd gotten in trouble before. I understood what was happening, and it like clicked for me really quickly where I was like, oh, I understand now. Like, you are just like anyone else I've ever met. And all of a sudden, like, everything started to rewire, and I spent the rest of my time finding the similarities between us rather than the differences. And that transformed, I mean, it transformed my whole life. I mean, I think that that's just like practical advice for anyone. If you walk into a room, you go to a party, right, and you don't know anybody, and you spend your whole time like, oh, these guys are nerds. They're not like me. Like I'm cool. Like you're gonna make yourself uncomfortable. You're gonna make yourself feel different. Like anywhere you go, if you're focused on the differences between you and other people, you're gonna have a really hard time relating. Um, and so that transformed the whole experience for us. And from that point forward, it really was like a light bulb went off where we flipped the switch, and we started to really settle in and enjoy the experience. So you talk about the travels you've had where you've ended up in places that are, different. It takes a lot to put yourself in those positions, and I just wasn't prepared. I don't think initially.
I did travel similar to that for about 8 years in my 20s, and I will tell you, every single time I would be in a position like that, I would be scared out of my mind. So I don't know if you're ever prepared.
No, but it's like a mindset. You know what I mean? Like you can evolve, and some people are pre-wired for that. Where they're like just more accepting, more open, and that openness I think is critical to how we built the business. This business, there's no secret math formula for how we built Naadam. There's nothing spectacular, other than we focused on relationships with people and finding similarities with people. It's all rooted in people. So I don't know. That might not position me well for like I don't something next, but it's all we've been able to do.
I think it does position. In my opinion, I think it does position you well for something that's next. And I have an idea around that. But before I jump into that, you have to be okay with the unknown. To be able to do what you did, you have to be okay with the unknown, with not knowing what every single outcome is going to be. And that's a really important quality for any successful entrepreneur to have.
Sure.
We have no idea what's going to happen next. And you got to be okay with that.
I still don't.
It's going to work out.
I think like one of the, because today, I still operate Naadam, but I've also invested in a lot of consumer businesses over time, and I've worked with a lot of other founders and entrepreneurs, and I've found that the common characteristic of people who stick it out is comfort with ambiguity and understanding that you can't control everything, and some of it you're going to have to just figure out as you go. It can be very stressful. If you don't like ambiguity, being a founder is extremely painful. You'll never find comfort. But a tolerance for ambiguity, an ability to, I think, prioritize given like a lack of focus or a lack of structure, and like pick what your structure needs to be, is I think what can allow a founder to navigate over a long period of time, as I have at least, in this kind of crazy category. And I think consumers, for whatever reason, higher end of complexity in startup world. I wish I'd known that originally, but requires a stamina, I think, for all of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But something else you said about your really being good with people and understanding people has been like one of the strengths. All anyone's talking about right now, and like the thing that I'm most excited about, probably one of the things you're most excited about, is everything that's happening with AI. Right, like it is just freaking wild. All the stuff, the changes from one month to the next, and it's like all these light bulbs keep on going off in your head about all these new things that we're finding and being able to do. But one thing that is not going to change, no matter how good that the AI technology gets, is that personal relationships and understanding people is still going to be a key component to running a business.
I sure hope so, because I'm not building like AI models. I'm a people person. You know what I mean? Like my job is is around the relationships we've built, whether it's with our suppliers overseas, whether it's with the herders we built the business around, whether it's with our customers and vendors or the employees here. I'll tell you what, I struggle with the AI conversation a lot, and I'll try and explain my point for a second. I've certainly experienced it as a consumer, and I use it to write emails or polish up a proposal. I will have it analyze a legal document or a problem, but it's not like transforming my business today. Yeah, it's come a long way in the 4 years that we've been active around it, or I've been active around it as an individual, but I've not seen like a major inflection point for our business get triggered by mass adoption of these tools yet. And I think that at some level it will happen. I think it'll happen, and I think it will have a major efficiency impact on the business. But if I don't know if it's going to have the kind of offsetting people piece that people think it will. Meaning, like, I don't see a world in which you're going to deleverage from your reliance on people to operate this business entirely. I think that it will make large groups of people more efficient, which will make businesses better. But I'm not like preparing our business for like mass layoffs and transitions to AI agents. I'm not seeing it. I don't know how to do it, to be honest with you. And so I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about it all. Yeah, I don't know how it will all settle for our category. And just so you know, I've looked at dozens of tools, like dozens of the tooling that comes across to automate customer service or creative or whatever it might be. And it makes sense to me. I'm not seeing it yet. And I'm not like an AI naysayer. I'm not trying to be that at all. I'm just saying, personally, I haven't seen it yet. And I don't know if that's something you're hearing from other founders or other folks, or I'm on odd man out. I don't know.
Well, I think it's like, at least sort of like how I'm taking it, is like, that's kind of pushback against the line of thinking that AI is going to take over everything. Right? Like Sam Altman says that all jobs are going to be replaced within 3 years. And so like what you're saying is kind of like, no, that's not going to happen. And I agree with that too. At least I hope that we're right. What I am seeing though is that a lot of the execution level work is being, I don't want to say automated yet, but it's being able to be done a lot quicker and a lot more efficiency, the execution layer, which is freeing up more time for the high level strategy thinking.
I certainly think so. I think that there are functions that these tools are improving. I think that the rate at which they improve things is also the rate at which people get comfortable around adopting them and using them efficiently. And I think that there's a buffer for that, for sure, where, for instance, if a performance marketer has spent 10, 15 years operating within certain structure, overnight, they're not going to automatically adopt these new tools and adapt to them, I think, the way that it sounds like they should, right? Like it's, and I'm acutely aware of the rhetoric that's coming out of these founders of kind of AI tools. It's a great way to prop up an IPO price if you're telling everyone that it's going to change the whole world forever. And I think that it is transforming things. I just don't, I'm not, how do I say this? I am not the smartest person in most rooms I walk into. So let me preface that when it comes to these things, I'm just an average Joe looking at it through a particular lens. My lens is, I'm a normal person who knows how to use things moderately well. I'm not like a super technical person. I'm not going to build agents to automate my whole life. I'm not that person. And I'm not seeing the tools yet like automate big parts of my life or big parts of my business. Um, and I don't know if this sounds like a canary in a coal mine or just somebody who is not as sophisticated as other people. But when I hear founders and other operators talk about how they've just transformed everything using it, I'm very skeptical. And I'm generally a skeptical person, but I'm also approach things just like an average consumer would. So I don't know. I'd love to be. I think I'd love to be proven right about this one. Just because of how I think it's going to affect people, mentally, how it will affect them. I think is hard to predict.
It is hard to predict. I think we're definitely going to see a change in the type of work that people are doing. I think there's always going to be, or I don't want to say always because, at least for the foreseeable future, there's going to be a need for the human interaction and the human layer inside of all of this. It's sort of like what I'm seeing too is like I run a D2C comm agency, and historically 80% of the work that brands paid us for was execution. In 2 years from now, brands are not going to be paying us to do 80% execution because they're going to be doing a lot of the execution, or the AI that a lot of these tools are building natively are going to make the execution a lot easier. But there is still going to be a place for agencies. It's just going to look a little bit differently. Like it's going to be like the layer between the brands and the softwares they use. Someone needs to know all the context about the business, right? So like I don't care how great the AI tools are that you're using inside of Shopify or inside of Klaviyo or inside of any other software. If you're coming to tell me and you're like, hey, Zach, my sign up rate on my sign up forms is way down, ask Klaviyo why that is. Klaviyo may not have the context that the sign up rate is down because you just launched a new sweater and we launched a new ad campaign on Meta, and the traffic that we're going after is lower quality. And so we're going to need people in between to be able to, do the context and then make the decisions with all the data that we have.
I agree completely. I think that they will be adopted similar to any of the SaaS solutions you use to operate a business today that 10 years ago you'd be like, oh my God, like that's transformative, right? Like the people that operate businesses will adopt different AI tooling. I don't think human judgment is ever going to go out the window, not in our category at least. I think in the marketing world, there are aspects of selling human psychology and marketing that are crucial to selling things to other people, right? Like I tell the team here all the time, when we get like caught up in the details, that we should not forget that we are selling things to people. This is not that complicated. I have something and I need to get you to buy it from me. Certainly, there are shortcuts that I think AI will present to populating that information and presenting it to people based on demographic information or whatever data is available that it can uncover or synthesize. But human judgment will be required regardless. Although, again, if you listen to everything you hear, it's like, no, agents will just sell things to agents and human beings will just be living in bubbles and like, I don't know.
I don't buy that either. Yeah, because the argument to what you were just saying is that, well, we're not going to be selling to humans anymore. We're going to be selling to agents. Agents are going to be reading your emails. They're going to be going to your website. They're going to be making purchases. I don't buy that either. And for one of the reasons is that people like to consume. People like to purchase. They like that gratification of pushing that buy now button.
In my experience of doing this for over a decade, is nothing is ever as bad as it seems. And the monster in the closet is never as scary as you thought. It just isn't. Like, the things I think will happen are always worse than the actual thing. Like if you just let me sit with what I think the worst case scenario will be about anything in my business on a daily basis, I will come up with something on my own that is worse than what the outcome could be in the worst case scenario, to be honest with you. And so I apply that same logic to looking at these things as well. And I certainly don't, want to make this conversation about AI because I don't know anything really other than what I see every single day. And maybe I have a unique perspective, but it's not that qualified. Um, we sell sweaters. I'm in the schmata business. That's it. And that's what I remind my whenever I get too heady about stuff or I overcomplicate things, which I do frequently. I remind myself that I'm a simple sweater salesman, and if I forget that, then I'm overlooking the foundational premise behind why we run this company and why we're all here. So it's not a very sexy answer to any of that, but that's where I land on it.
Yeah. All right. I like it. You sell sweaters to people. People purchase your sweaters.
That's it. Now, listen, I think that we're always searching for ways to be more profitable and make the process of selling things more efficient. But that I don't think that the fundamental pieces of that transaction in my lifetime of operating this business are going to change too dramatically. But I don't know. Listen, if you're seeing something I'm not, I love being proven wrong.
Want to see where your e-commerce brand is leaving money on the table? Book a free revenue audit with the team at ECD Digital Strategy and get a clear plan to increase revenue. Go to Klaviyo.com/ECD to schedule yours today. I don't think I disagree with the premise of what you're saying. I think and what I'm taking as the premise is that ultimately we're going to find efficiencies with AI. Different people are going to adopt it at different rates. Ultimately, there is going to need to be a people layer in everything that we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, we are building things for people. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, I don't
wear your sweaters.
Yeah, I don't think so. I hope so, or else I'm really wrong. If that's the case, I've really screwed this up. I have lived by a premise for the life of building Naadam or anything that I've endeavored along the way, which is keep it simple, stupid, right? I always remind myself of that bring things down to their foundational level and make decisions from that perspective rather than try to account for all the variables that can exist around making any sort of business decision. And in the short time that I've been doing this, which 10 years or so is relatively short, right, in terms of the lifetime of building a brand or a career, I've seen so many mutations of direct consumer, right? I remember 2015, raising money to launch Naadam, and it was retail's dead. No one's ever going to go into a store again. E-com's changing everything, and you should spend $10 million on performance marketing because you're going to make 20 or 30 and just do that over and over again and grow until infinity. That was the premise behind launching businesses in this category back then, right? And none of that is true today.
And how many times over that 10 years has email been dead? Email's dead. Email's dead. No one's using email. We're not going to convert.
100%. I mean, every 6 months, something changes, and there's a prognostication about the tooling or systems that are dead, and it's going to change everything, and you need to adopt this other version. And I guess I've just become desensitized a little bit to the noise, and the thing that I come back to is what are the foundational elements of this problem, and remove all the other noise, and let's make this 1 + 1 = 2. Again, I'm sure that there's business that's way more sophisticated than what I do, and there are people way smarter than I am that are way more sophisticated about executing them. I am not those things, And so 1 + 1 always needs to equal 2 for me. And if I can't get to that place, then it's not a decision for me in that moment, to be honest with you. That's the only way I've been able to manage the ambiguity that we talked about earlier that basically never goes away. You know what I mean? Like the longer you do this, just the bigger the problems become. I wish someone told me that years ago.
All right, I got some other questions about the D2C and you launching the business.
Yeah.
But I got to ask you a question. You're 23, 24 years old, and you have bags $2.4 million or $2.5 million. Like,
yeah.
How did that feel? Scary?
No, it didn't. Again, I look back at that time, and there was just so much I didn't know. Like it was like not real. You know what I mean? Like those decisions today, I would understand the consequences of those mistakes. But at 24 years old, I didn't know there were consequences, to be honest with you. It just felt like what it took to get from A to B to C. And I've been asked a million times, did you have security? Like you definitely had someone around you. And it didn't even cross my mind. Like that seems insane to me because this was the only way we could do it. The only way you could transact, at least the only way we could transact at that time, was to show up with cash. We didn't have enough of a relationship to offer to wire people money. They wouldn't trust us, right? Oh, you're going to send me the money? Like, no, show it to me. Put it in my hand and I'll give you what I have. It's really, really fundamental. And because that was the premise of the relationship with the people, then the only way to do it was with cash. I mean, I went into the bank and we started to withdraw the $2.5 million. To give you just some perspective on this, we had to go to several different banks throughout the day because no individual bank would give us that kind of cash. Didn't hold that kind of cash, first of all.
Right.
And we would come out with a shopping bag. They would put it in a shopping bag and be bundles of cash in a shopping bag. So I would walk out with 2 trash bags, like literally Stop and Shop bags with handles on them. And I throw them in the back seat. And we go to the next one and we do the same thing. I didn't think that was weird. I mean, I get it. It sounds really weird right now, but that was just what it took. It filled the entire back seat, so the entire trunk of this Land Cruiser, floor to ceiling. So all you could see was money pressed up against the glass. It was 65 pounds of money. It's 2 griks, so 2 griks is the currency in Mongolia, and it was just what we had to do. And so we arrived, the next day essentially in the area, and we just kept all the cash in the back, in the trunk. We locked the car, and then I would spend all day buying things up. I'd meet with the herder, he'd bring his bale, we'd weigh it, we'd inspect it, pay him cash, he walks away, throw it in the warehouse. And we just keep doing it for 3 weeks straight, every day.
That's awesome.
It was insane. It was a crazy experience. Looking back on it, it feels like a movie. Like I replayed in my head like it was a movie. At the time, I was just too stupid to know what I would. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was just too naive to know what was really happening. It was just how we had to do it.
Yeah, I totally get it. I spent 26. I was living in Hawaii. And I decided I was leaving Hawaii and I was going to go travel Southeast Asia. I was importing textiles from Thailand and Nepal.
No way.
Near the extent what you were doing by any means.
I love it.
But I said to a friend of mine, I thought it was all cool, right? And I said to a friend, he's like, "Oh, we're going to go." I'm like, I was going to put up my sails and see where the wind takes me. So he called me out on it. He goes, "Oh, actually, my dad is leaving on a sailboat to go sail around the world, and it's a 4-person sailboat, and he needs 1 more person." I'm like, so I said, "Yeah." And so, but it's a 3-week sail from Hawaii to California, and it was a gnarly trip.
Really?
We were in 50-foot waves, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Like it was nuts.
Holy shit!
But I tell the story and like the stuff that we went through. Like I was telling this story yesterday morning. At one point, so it was a power sail because we went in March. You're not supposed to do the crossing in March because that's when the waves are coming. All the weather, like the big waves, are coming from California.
Okay.
So it was a power sail, and this captain, he had never done a crossing before, and he had behind the helm, he had a hot tub. And when we're in port, the hot tub would be filled up with water. He was a restaurateur, he was a party guy. But during the crossing, it was
what kind of boat was it?
It was a 50. I don't know anything about boats. It was a 55-foot sailboat
Cool.
with a diesel engine.
Okay.
But so the hot tub was filled with a bladder of diesel. So it was a power sail, and the bladder got a hole in it. So like as we're going through, these waves, the diesel is splattered. You had to lean against the hot tub, and you're getting splattered with diesel fuel the entire time.
Holy shit.
And then the fuel pump broke
on the water, mid sail.
Yeah, it's about 4 days out. So 4 days out to sea. So we had to replace the fuel pump. Like we had to go looking through all these cabinets that were just chock full of just crap. Find this other fuel pump in this box behind this thing, and I ended up being the one to replace it. I know absolutely nothing about engines. I'm not a very handy guy. I'm handy at like taking things apart, but not putting things together. So I put the fuel pump in. A fuel pump is like it's like a square with a pipe on one side, pipe on the other side, and it didn't fit the tube. It was too big, so the tube wouldn't go in it. So tried attaching it with duct tape, thinking, oh yeah, we'll just do duct tape. Turn it on, boom. That didn't work, and we ended up. So this is what we did. So there was a little dinghy on the sailboat.
Yep.
And it wasn't blown up, right? So we're in this horrible weather. The dinghy should have been blown up, but it wasn't blown up. But it had a little foot pump, and so I'm saying imagine your kid's foot pump that comes free with one of those toys that blows up. That's the quality. And so I found the foot pump and the tube. I cut the tube and I used the tube to attach the pipe to the tube where the fuel goes in, and then I found some hose clamps and I attached the hose clamps to it.
Shit.
And we made it back to port. We're limping into port. Yeah, but I look back.
Wait, you made it across? You did the whole crossing.
So
you had to turn around.
We had to go back, and then we left. Once we got that repaired, then we left again. But yeah, we had to turn around. So right when that happened, we got a phone call from the weather guy on the satellite phone, the guy that was helping us on the travels, and he said, "Hey, you guys got to turn around. There's 2 storms that are converging on right on your path, and you guys need to turn around."
Holy crap!
We can't. And at one point the steering went out, and so we were just floating.
What kind of boat was this?
Didn't go out. One of the guys had just what's that?
Was this boat just not prepared for a crossing like that at all?
I think the boat wasn't prepared, and the people on the boat definitely were not prepared.
Who knew how to sail? Who was the sailor?
The captain. There was the captain, and there was one other guy who flew in from Australia just for this crossing. It's it's like a Craigslist type of things where you post when you need somebody. And so he flew in from Australia. I knew nothing about sailing. I grew up sailing sunfish in the summertime on Lake George.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Have you sailed since like that? Have you done another one of those?
No.
That was it. You were done.
Yeah. I got to California. I bought all right, I'm done. I bought a one-way ticket to Thailand. Then I just spent a lot of time.
I honestly love those experiences. I grew up sailing, and I used to spend summers sailing schooners around Martha's Vineyard. So I have spent a good amount of time on a boat, and any one of those experiences is a nightmare, even if you are, 100 yards from from your mooring or something. So, and I know the crossing between Hawaii and California, it's treacherous. If you are not an experienced sailor, doing that is like a death sentence. That's insane. That's crazy that you just signed up for that.
Insane. But right, it's the same thing. It's I was 26, 27, just looking for some adventure, just didn't know what I didn't know, and thinking I was, indestructible, and wanting to go and experience and just blow my mind and try something new.
Totally.
But now I couldn't imagine if I have 3 kids, and I couldn't imagine if one of my kids wanted to go.
Yeah.
No. My poor mother.
I look back at those experiences that I've had, and I look at the process of building Naadam at least. And if I knew everything I knew today, if I wrote it all out and I told you in detail every experience I've had that nearly killed me, there's no way that there's no amount of money you could pay me to do this.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not naive, like for me, the feeling I've always had while doing this, one is I never feel secure. I always feel like we are just a few steps away from failing. That never goes away. But being naive, like you have to have that. And I've always had the feeling that I had to just figure it out. I had to keep going. Like this survival mentality is the only thing that's really driven me through all of that. That mixed with a heavy dose of not knowing what I don't know all the time. It's just solving problems. There's probably a great metaphor in here around sailing that it's like you just do whatever you have to do, right? Like whatever it takes.
Yeah. You either do whatever you have to do or you don't, and then you don't make it.
Right. And I talk to that's right. I talk to people all the time that are starting companies, and they'll be like, well, I want to stay in school. I want to start this on the side, or I want to keep my day job and I want to start this on the side. And my advice is always, if you don't do it 100%, then you're not doing it. It's like if you're thinking you could just kind of like keep this going a little bit and then have your safety net, then you're never going to give it what it takes to make it work. I certainly have felt this way, that if I didn't feel like I would die if I failed, then I would not do it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no way I could keep going. Like logically, you wouldn't keep going. Yeah. And that's driven me even, every major inflection point that we've had building this business. And we've gone through several mutations of operating. Like I said, we had the early days of scaling D2C with a lot of venture backing. We moved into a private equity backed holdco roll-up strategy, and we came back to a single standalone brand that was now diversified across different distribution channels that looks probably like the business that existed before 2015 in this category. So it's been a wild experience, but it's always been, this logic of I have to figure out how to get from A to B, and if I don't, I fail, is, and being in that process 150% is the only way we would be here today. I think.
Yeah, I agree with all that. The not knowing what's going to happen, realizing you got two choices. You either do this and you succeed, or you don't and you fail, or you do this and you live. You don't and you die. It's simple. You're going to do what you have to do to succeed, to live.
I was listening to a podcast of what's his name from NVIDIA, the Jensen Young or whatever his name is, and he was talking about how even today he's scared to death to fail. And I've heard a lot of these kind of founder podcasts, and a lot of times those guys, they don't really give you insight into that emotion, right? Like it seems formulaic, and it's like, oh, these guys are untouchable. But that resonated with me more than basically anything I've heard from another founder. Is I'm not afraid to admit it. I am scared to death to fail, and I will do anything possible to avoid that and stay alive, because I view it like that. It's survival at all costs all the time. To build a business in the category that we're in, I think maybe takes a bit more of that, just because it's extremely volatile. It certainly has been over the past 10 years. And so that founding experience we had, which is like, hey, drop you off in the middle of nowhere and figure it out. While it's guided a lot of our values and what we built the brand on, it's also been the playbook. Like it's like that founding story we never adapted away from. It's been how we've done things, or at least how I've done things.
It's how I've done things too. Figure it out.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sold a new service to a client, and then I go back, I tell the team, you sold a new service, and then they're like, how the heck are we going to do this thing?
Yeah, all the time. I do that all the time. I totally get that. But I think that that's like a very common experience for entrepreneurs and founders. Uh, you sell it and then figure out how to do it. But if you explain that, we've had consultants, we've hired people from large organizations, and you explain that, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" That's an insane operating model, but it is, I think, foundational for a lot of startups. I really relate to that, and I guarantee you, our team here, well, they just know it at this point. They're like, "What now? Like, what did you just sell us into right now?
What did you commit us to do?"
Yeah. I've done a lot of that.
Zach, how are we going to do this?
Totally, and you just figure it out.
Too, I said that, they'll come to me and they'll say, "Zach, how am I going to do this?" But it gives them so much self-confidence same with your employees, when you just go to them, you're like, "Guys, you can do this. You can figure this out." And you just say, "Figure it out." And then they do it. And then they're like, "Oh, wow, I can do this."
Right. I mean, it's a confidence building process as well. Like the more amount of times that you just have to figure it out and you're successful in that process, the more comfortable you become kind of living in an environment where that is how you do it. I'm confident other businesses don't do this. Like I've seen it work differently. So I know that that's not 100% of how it works, but at least in my experience, it sounds like yours as well. That's the operating model. And I'm comfortable in that. I'm comfortable in that world.
Yeah. I think, some people need to know everything is planned out, and that's wonderful, right? There's probably a lot more security in that. But I think too, like now, stuff is changing with AI, and I think we need to be okay with not knowing exactly what that picture looks like. Like, I guarantee you, what digital agencies look like today are not going to, 2 years from now, it's going to be drastically different. Well, the agencies that are still around are going to look drastically different.
I think so. I think the services that are going to be offered will be transformed. But I also think agencies that know how to implement, train, and utilize the tools that we talked about that are going to need to be adapted internally are the ones that are going to be leveraged the most. I mean, I've seen it already. We get a lot of outreach from people and individuals, or corporations and individuals, that will come in and train to use certain things or map out how we adopt different agent systems. I think that will be a part of how agencies are servicing customers, because a lot of businesses are not going. I mean, like we're in a category potentially where we at least have a higher proclivity for noticing and adopting these things. But like I look at, for instance, my father-in-law's business. He is a chemical manufacturer in the Midwest. I don't think that they're like mapping out SOPs to like overlay agent usage for like different systems internally. Like I'm pretty confident they're not. And so I think the agency world will adapt to the variation of who's adopting what and when, would be my guess.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And I agree with that. Right. Like, people selling to landscape companies, agencies selling to landscape companies are not going to adapt near as quickly as agencies.
There'll be variation across the board. And yeah, I'm here for it. I just think I'll just remain a little cautious.
All right, Matt, we're about at time, and I had 3 pages of questions, and so I have 2 pages and 3/4 left. I think I didn't even.
Sorry.
But
that's my bad.
I love the conversation. Let's do a couple of rapid fire questions.
Cool.
One consumer brand you admire right now?
Malbon Golf, I think, is doing really, really cool stuff.
Most underrated skill for founders?
Endurance.
Best advice you ever received?
Shut up and listen.
3 tools in your tech stack that you couldn't live without?
Personally? Or the company-wise? Which one?
D2C company-wise.
I think that Klaviyo right now is becoming a larger part of our business model. We've adopted a tool called Homegrown, which is an AI tool for creative. And I don't know, what's a third that we can't live without? I don't know off the top of my head.
Shopify.
Those are two good ones. Yeah, sure. Shopify.
Awesome. Matt, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. This was fun. Loved hearing about your stories as well. It's nice to know I'm not the only crazy one.
There's others out there. Before we wrap up, if you're serious about growing your e-commerce brand, go grab a free revenue audit. We find the revenue you're leaving on the table. We'll analyze your store, marketing, retention channels to show you exactly where the biggest revenue opportunities are. It's completely free and you'll walk away with a clear growth plan. Just go to klaviyo.com/ECD and book your audit today.